In your work as an analyst, remember we have to stick with the foundations first. So the moment that you start to analyze different aspects of a person's life relative to relationships, to cycles, you really need to have a solid grounding or a foundation in the person's truth principle, their individual nature of knowing what they are here for, what they came here for. Because no longer is this life about creating dependencies. In truth, now, here, one must come to an awareness of one's own sovereign nature in order to have strong boundaries. Okay, boundaries, a theme for the new era, the new age. And so if we can help that client align to their form principle, the predominance of the energetics of what they came here for, they are more likely to be able to say no to those things that just aren't so, as in not inherent to their individual truth. So starting with the structure is one of the things that I wanted to remind you of in order that you remember how this works. Always do a really solid foundation for your clients or for yourself before you try to go into any of this extraneous stuff. Because I'll tell you, one of the most interesting things, particularly to those of us who are human design is like a candy store, projectors wanting to know the others, anybody wanting to know what's going on, whatever it is, if you don't remember the foundational core of you, it's mind candy. Okay, so let's remind ourselves of the foundational core, and it will help us link to the planetary life aspects as far as the relational dynamics, because correctness, according to Ra, begins to align the being to the potential of its purpose. And in being aligned to the potential of your purpose, you have to see that it is aligning to your purpose, not mine, not somebody else's. In fact, not a purpose that you can actually share with anyone. It's yours. It's absolutely unique. And only when you get to a point where you operate correctly, only then can you truly be the only authority, not just simply your authority, but the only authority. It is your truth. And any decision that is made is correct. And the passenger, when the passenger is liberated from that, when there is true authority in the life, then the passenger can begin to see and really see beyond this shell. Stick your head through the sky and really see. You can only do this alone. So it is your path, your process, your structure. So to follow the structure, before we go into the orientation of attempting to bring in planetary life aspects, which happen to be also people too, we have to go back to the surface view. What makes this type unique, this strategy unique, this authority unique, and this chart unique? Each of these views help in their support and clarification of the specificity of the nature of being. Remember, just like everyone else, you are unique. The type, strategy, and authority is not a generalization when you get to this level of the knowledge, as in being able to articulate to somebody the difference between transit coming in with what, let's say it's another authority channel that is emotional, which is not normally their emotionality or their authority principle. Then you have to be able to differentiate between what is theirs and what is not theirs. And that's the thing that's going to help you do really good work as a cycles analyst. So again, channel definition. Do recall that you have very specific descriptions, not just the general, but very specific descriptions of red versus black, of what planets, what lines, because we are all, each of us individually, a specificity. When it comes to the strategy, that person, this is a emotional energy projector, mental, classic, very different things. So what is specific to this being, because it's a basic split and a wide split? How does that change the strategic nature of this person being able to trust their own authority process? What elements will work with or against the strategy? Do recall the design dilemmas. design dilemmas when it comes to helping that person light up with awareness or recognition or response or whatever the case may be to their authority principle. And the inner authority or the personal authority, if there is no inner authority, as in with reflectors or mental projectors. What makes this person's authoritative process unique? It's the channels, it's their inner authority. But what creates the channels, the specificity of the operation of the authority, comes from the planetary activations. That's the name of the game that we're going to be playing with today, the planetary activations. So overall chart dynamics, what makes this being unique, like this wide split, like any incarnation cross gates hanging as dormant potentials waiting to get lit up by life and by others to broadcast their nature of being. Okay, so when you're looking at activations, sometimes it's fun to put the planets on there because that planet is going to be in a specific gate line at either end of the birth time, either mental, conscious personality constructs, psychological, or body, which is the life process. This is bringing the potential energy of a person or awareness or differentiation, whatever you want to call it. So when you look at these activations, they are standing for certain principles, certain lessons, certain learnings in the life. And each one of them has a very different flavor or creative expression, especially in context with an other within the channel. And that right there gets so aware of what your client is here to be, or you, if you're doing this for yourself, doing this work for yourself. So when it comes to the nature of being able to source into the definition that is true, because again, slang human design, we'll call it. Oftentimes we might say, and everybody does this, oh, you have definition through the transit, you have definition through the relationship. Actually, definition happens to be the natal imprinting. That's it. Okay. The channel with both gates activated, this center connected through the defined channel brings the only life force purpose fulfillment as far as the differentiating factors that are created by the planetary activations. Look, Jupiter and nodes. The moment that you see this light up as far as nodes conjunct a planet, now you have something very specific that is orienting you either to past or to future. So when you are now adding on another layering of a cycle, you are going to have your work cut out for you, particularly when it's personal. Why? Let's say a transit that we were looking at brought in a whole slew of other planets. How do we untangle this kerfuffle, as in analyze what's happening? It's going to be very, very specific words that you're going to use that I'm going to introduce you to today. And you're going to have to practice and play and repeat it over and over and over again in order to land this in or to sink this into your awareness. Because the energy that is fixed, consistent, reliable, trustworthy for decision-making is not static over the developmental process of growing through or maturing through the decades of one's life experience. Example, Saturn, Uranus, Chiron, they are movements towards purpose, as we have discussed. Okay, so in the day-to-day mundane reality, as well as the solar principle, the yearly annual cycle, now we have all these different things coming in, layering on top, and it's changing your experience of yourself. Now we say daily, the daily transits, and some of these planets, they drag on and on and on. Sorry for being silly, but this is my experience. As in, the planet that is there, gotta show you something. Good golly, Miss Molly, my friends. Nothing like personal experience to get your teacher all hopped up on, you guys, this is amazing. I'm learning stuff. Okay, so let's look at the Venus chart. There we are. We're going to create a chart of right now, just now. And we know that planets who are long in the tooth, as in they move quite slow, as in they are big, don't you know? They take some time. Okay, look what's happening with Jupiter. we have a detriment. The drive for leadership that may not yet have earned the right. That's where Jupiter is. Gate 45, line 5, leadership. All 5th lines, leadership. They resonate on that principle. In detriment, drive to lead, no right to. But look, Lavina getting affected by every 12 years. There's the 21-3, powerlessness, lack of will for the material path in order to protect the ego. What to do? It is what it is. Now you lock this particular experience into a transit that is long, as in your 30s, 40s, 50s. Then you have this layering in of the influential developmental process of how this being is learning about life during that organic time of their process. Say it again. In your 30s, you lock in some of these transits, or 40s or 50s, as in the element of the life process, the life transit gets locked in. Now you have something that is moving you towards purpose, that is helping you learn and develop and grow in order to fulfill your life process. Okay? It's just the nature of the show. As in, this is the crystallization of the mental or form principle as far as how this being is here to be who they really came here to be, or what they really are, or the true self, the authentic self, the enlightened selfishness that is the awareness of what this being came here to be. And so when we see these natures within the construct or the structures, you can see clearly that Venus comes in and there's no kind of detriment to my own natal Venus. Thank heavens, because the way that the experience of this mind's not self-process is, please, Jupiter, move. I need to take care of my family. I don't want to withdraw from the material plane. Please move. And then it's not moving. Well, quite slowly, actually, according to our little finite minds and experiences of the now times, it is quite challenging. So the reason I'm doing my little song and dance is to hopefully inspire you to see. That's all this is. Inspire you to see, like, look and see truly. The definition, how it's configured, gives the additional indication for how energy will interact with the world. Definition, two-way street. Activation in an undefined center, still part of this person's natal being, but in relational context to life. Okay, the teachers inside of these places and spaces, how the energy is put together is going to show us fundamentally how that energy is going to react to the world, and the layering over of conditioning. So now you know conditioning can happen in the openness, but we can also have its effect within channels as well. And how do we analyze that? You are going to have a concretized set of formulae, structures, word formula phrases that you can use in order to describe these planetary themes. Now, to review, each of the planets, these movements of energy, impetus for potential awareness, or drive, or pressure, or stress, or will, or identity, the notification of one's energy principle being activated can feel quite jarring if one is not correct, as in not capable of handling the reality of the exoteric, the outside world, and the esoteric, the inner truth of one's individual nature can sometimes be dormant, we'll say, as in you're not able to go inside to your own personal authoritative process. And even if you don't have an inner authority, you all have your own personal authoritative process. The sun, our radiance of life force awareness, the heavenly aspect of being, as in the form principle on the body side or the mind side, concretizing the awareness of one's life's work, purpose, fulfillment. Rounded into the earth, which is the worldly balancing aspect, the earthly form principle, the yin. So the yang being the sun, the yin being the earth. What is grounded into this form principle of the nature of you fulfilling your life's work. Moon being a motivational pulling aspect or pushing aspect. Mentally, it is a mental focus. Unconsciously, it can feel like a driving force that pushes or pulls at you. Think like lunar tides, pulling or pushing. North node is going to be the environmental, as far as it's a developmental future aspect after the age of 38 to 44. South node, the environmental or past aspect, as in the developed or even overdeveloped process that you came into, incarnated with in this life process into this being, body, form, principle, experiment of consciousness and form. Those processes take time. There is a similar thing happening with the cycles, depending on what cycle we're orienting you to, okay? We are going to definitely help you orient to the way in which a yearly cycle versus 30s, 40s, 50s, and beyond open up the awareness principle of the path that you're walking, the road that you're traveling, the way that you're seeing, and think of them like cutouts. Think of them like chapters in a book or a movie. You know how you got your chapters or your, let's use TV when it comes to seasons, okay? Seasons in the life. We have these longer life seasons. And within that season, we have these little tiny, what do they call it? Help me out here, guys. I'm lost with that word. You know, the little, they're not sessions. That's where my mind is going. For me, it's sessions. I have my little sessions. Chapters, that's a book. But in the movie, in the TV show, you know, those pieces. Think of the yearly, so the annual cycle. Episodes. Thank you, Alex. Episodes. Annually, it's an episode. I'm having a fit. I'm having an episode. Okay, good one. I really like that because the episode, yeah, like a seizure. I'm having an episode. I'm having an experience that isn't necessarily moving me towards purpose. Oops. Oh, well, what to do? It's part of the movie. So when you're linking this being, their beingness, to their seeing correctly, along with this additional episode that they're layering on top, either for the yearly, which is a distraction point, or for the larger life cycles, which is movement towards purpose. You're helping to orient them to the path in which they walk as they see along the road that they are traveling, and not get distracted by the illusion, delusion, or false narrative of the day, not being conditioned to try to see in the same way. Okay, Mercury, communication, conscious thinking and expressing, or voice on the body side. You could call it a perspective, as in it is a mental framing on the conscious personality, whereas the body, which is the life, it's the voice principle, the voice that is expressing. It's part of the energetic opening of expression and movement, communication. Now, Venus, yeah, movement is communication, isn't it? Venus values mores or morals, this aspect of love and beauty. On the body side, it's the complexion, the things that makes our complexion glow, or rosy cheeks just so. On the mind side, it is the mental capability of finding one's morality, okay? Your mores, your moralistic, maybe it's a value judgment as far as what you value, what you find beautiful, what you find you are internally appreciative of, okay? Mars, this immaturity or maturing energy dynamic. On the mind side, it's the thing that breaks you free from the humdrum mundane reality, as in it's a developmental aspect that allows you to have a personal, powerful, transformational effect. Mars. Don't leave that one behind. He is solid. He'll do you a solid if you align. Now, on the body side, this is the temperature, the body's principle of heat, which creates mutation. Mutation requires heat, okay? Jupiter, great, by Jove, by jolly, by golly, Miss Molly. We have this personal law or correct aspect of personal developmental principle. as in Jupiter gives you the great good fortune and good luck when you obey your own law, rule. Remember, rule. On the body side, it is the aura, the energetic expansion and contraction of the aura, because the auras breathe. Did you know your aura breathes? Just walk into an elevator and you can feel, ooh, no, maybe not. I can't wait to get out of this elevator. Or maybe you're just like, it's all fine. It's all dandy. Ooh, people. I like that. Depends on your design. Okay. Your own concretization of your law or rule, your personal obeyances, protects you. It's a protective element of your personal development. Saturn, the judge, brings a consequential, consequential aspect of your personal development. Now, I'm reviewing this because you are going to see the linkages that we use in transits. It's going to rhyme. They're going to be similar and somewhat same, with a slight twist, a difference in the language that you could use if it's correct for you to use, okay? So get the body graph of that being first, and then you can use different layering principles so that there's no confusion between the illusion or delusion of out there being something that you must compare to or must measure against or whatever. Because again, transits are not you. They are learning opportunities and concretizing into the nature of being you, aligning to what's true through your strategy, honoring yourself as your authority, gives you strength. It gives you discipline. Hi, Saturn, the judge, this consequential aspect, the personal signpost of whether or not one is aligned. Why? Because Saturn is a harsh taskmaster when one is not operating in alignment. It brings pain. It brings discipline. It brings constriction, restriction, constraint. It brings calcification, aging, the bones. Okay. So on the body side, this is the ability to exhale. So if one is holding one's breath, think Saturn on the body side. If one is mentally pressured, stressed, angsty, uncomfortable, this is the thou shalt not pass, like that kind of like, don't go further and no beyond, because Saturn is disciplining you to stay on the straight and narrow path, the track of either your life, or if it's your Saturnian cycle, let's call away all of the dead myths, all of the things that do not serve. Let's let go of the old toys, the old things that no longer belong, because now it's time to grow up in your Saturnian cycle. And Saturn brings us this evolutionary principle of judgmentation, as in to judge, as in to work, as in to bring forth the nature of one's reincarnative principle of work. Okay, discipline. It brings correct restriction. Now, Uranus, unusual, wacky, weird, chaotic aspect that's stirring up. You can hear the muse of Lavina currently. Thank you, Uranus, currently. Okay, 8, line 3. Wacky, weird. Oh, well, what to do? On the conscious side, it can bring a mental sidetracking. On the unconscious side, it brings unusual movement. Okay, so this is what Uranus is doing. Innovative, creative, wacky, weird, sudden shifts, sudden leaps of evolution. And then we look to the nature of Neptune. Watery, mysterious, elusive, behind a veil. Yeah, my mind is saying false evidence appearing real again. The nature of being, that one is kind of hidden, as in the element of one's nature of awareness is so turned off here relative to your own organic principle, Neptune. Illusion, art, spirituality, hidden behind a veil. Now, out in the world, new things coming in, what is this hiddenness going to erode or going to reveal? We'll see in your specificity. Last but not least, we have Pluto. Now, these are lifelong transformative effects here. The Pluto, inner truth or its subconscious aspect, your psychological makeup on the personality side, your truth process, which takes a lifetime, lifelong learning, a lifetime to explore the nature of the depth of the truth of your Plutos. And on the body side, this is the inhalation of life, the life process, the life principle, inhaling the richness and the depth of life. Death is life, as in there has to be death in order for life to have meaning and ending, in order for new beginnings to happen. Okay, so that is our review principle. In your course area, you're going to find Lavina's older version of going through this. I will re-record next semester. Okay, so that's just a reminder. Now we are going to go into the life aspects. And in these life aspects, presenter view, we are going to find that there is a principle of awareness as far as the language that we use that can help you describe these things to your client. Very simple, very profound, but it's going to require that you start to practice and play and language these things so that you can remember what to say or how to frame it or what to say when it comes to the element of this day and how the interpretation could in fact trigger an awareness. So it's like you're keeping two things in mind, okay, when you're doing this work. You're keeping the principle of this being themselves in their own authoritative process absolutely crystallized in your mind, so that every time you talk about something outside of them, you bring it back home to their authoritative principle. So you know how in PTL 1, we taught you how to go back and forth between openness and definition, openness and definition. Any problem that may be in openness, we resolve it through the authoritative principle. Now, instead of generalization of the openness, now when it comes to the solar principle, the annual life cycle, the birth cycle, okay, every birth year, they can have an rave return with you. Now you can use specifics as far as what this being is going to be learning about or developing through that may be distracting them away from their true authentic nature of purpose. So instead of being general, now we get to be specific because we can literally see people, we can see thematics, we can see events, we can see experiences. Now, it's not going to like specifically name a name, like, you know, this Ben is going to come into your life and he's tall, dark, and handsome and all that stuff. No, that's more the soothsaying and psychic kind of wordiness. Over here, we have this may or may not experience a person who's going to bring you this or that or the other thing. Okay, so that's the thing that you're going to learn how to express and experience. Let's start at the beginning. In the life aspects under cycles analysis, we are going to go through the weather impact and the weather conditioning with you today. So right here with Ra's chart, I have some examples of words that you can use. Remember, you have a whole bag of tricks. You have all kinds of tools in your toolkit. You can use whatever words feel right for you to synthesize or use. But these are some of the words that I have just picked as examples. So if we're looking at the solar principle, as in a birth year of a yearly cycle. Now, this is obviously not his birth year of a yearly cycle. Otherwise, it would be exactly the same. Okay, exactly the same. It's not. But it's a movement towards purpose. Movement towards purpose. What does that mean? Well, in this example, because we looked at Ra's chart last week, we know that this was his Chiron, his Chironian process as far as his life purpose in fulfillment. The place and space where he has this potential to plant his cross during this season of his life. So I would use this season, if you will. Ooh, like a fine wine, you know, taking some seasons to age and mature. 50s, okay, as an example here. So when we look at the nature of North Node, we see the future, as in what we're moving towards, what our aim is, what our goal is, or where our revelation is, where the principle of how we might be driven to go in a direction or receptive to the future view of the way in which this being is here to have its season unfold. So again, a developmental, a nodal principle that you layer over on top of what's already there. Now that's a little bit tricky to do all in one sitting, which is why you do a seriously thorough foundation analysis so that you don't have to go back and explain everything over here. You just bring in some keynotes and you explain. Okay, and we see the resonance principle. See that third line there? Oh, we have a little bit of an orientation to how we can help the person link to their future and past view when it comes to their psychological makeup or their seeing, because the black is the personality seeing, where it is designed to walk this path or be. So when you're looking at these, you're actually seeing people. Why? Because these are arms of a cross always and in all ways. So you're looking at the process of the nodal principle bringing a pathway or a direction as well as a viewpoint, okay? Past and future. Now, through the element reminding you that you can still use same words or similar values, we see the mental focus with the moon or an unconscious drive there. We see the conscious communication with Mercury or an unconscious think. I would put maybe voice now that I know it's really truly voice, okay? Voice over here. And as well as people, because these are inner planets, particularly when it's connected up with something personal. I will review this, so don't worry that you have to memorize it. We communicate with people through our voice. And what are they going to do with us? They might bring standards or a values trip that has nothing to do with us personally. And yet, this is part of the correct conditioning that is moving us towards our purpose fulfillment. No judgment here, purpose fulfillment. The Mars principle, that was more feminine in nature and beauty, romance, whatever, what you find valuable, beautiful. The Mars principle is more sturdy, energized. Sometimes it's uncoordinated energy. Somebody with some uncoordinated energy, yeah, as far as you're learning about this from that being, relative to the mutation or transformation is another word that you could use, because Mars's mutating effect, heat, remember, mutation requires heat. It's like cooking food. You could call it denaturing it, or you could call it making it more nourishing, couldn't you? Depends on the food. Depends on how you're cooking the food, what the heat is that is being applied. Is it light? Is it just steaming, lightly steaming? Are we boiling that particular experiential process? Okay, it depends. What is literally there? We're not just looking at planets, today we are, but you're also going to be taking into account the value of the gate aspect, line aspect, if you go so deep, particularly in the larger, yearly, more comprehensive rave return, because that is one where you do go deep. Now, law or protection and the cycle rule, you can use those keynotes interchangeably. Conscious law or unconscious rule, you might add, in order to find this particular experiential process or the language that you might use. You have your constraint, remember, Saturn again, or discipline as a potential. You have your mental sidetrack, Uranus, and you maybe have innovation. The unconscious could be innovative, just like a mental sidetrack could lead to breakthroughs and innovation. Spirituality, unconsciously, or misinformation, isn't it comparatively? Could be this, could be that, who knows? It's behind a veil. Or it could be eradicating. It could be dissolving boundaries. That's why Neptune sometimes speaks to the nature of drugs because drugs, psychic phenomena, drugs do bring these dissolving of the barriers of this mundane reality so that you can pierce yourself behind the veil. Or is that sustainable though? Not saying, hey, go do drugs because now you got the shaman channel with Neptune there. A lot of people right now maybe potentially experimenting because it has been there. Okay, and then truth, transformation, psychology. So you've seen me language this repeatedly. This all should be somewhat of a review unless you didn't take PTL1 with me, right? If you didn't, no worries. We'll repeat, give you resources, handouts, learnings. Now, if we were to take this and look specifically at where in the body graph this being happens to encounter these forces. Okay, Ra liked the term encounter. I love it too, because it literally brings the cycle, bringing people, bringing an encounter with a force outside of you, even though it may feel like something is being done to you. Okay, in a cycle, if anything from the cycle is hitting up with the unconscious aspect of you, remember that's not consciously something that you are aware of, it will feel like something is being done to you, maybe forced to you, maybe pushed upon you, like something's happening and you may not consciously be able to be aware of it, but it's a physical encounter. Now, you see this term renewal. Renewal is what happens when the activation comes to part of the design principle that is already there. Okay, now notice that Saturn brings the 7.3, anarchist. Ra was an anarchistic leader, wasn't he? But now we see the encounter bringing, it's not precise, is it? It's bringing the 7.4. And what is it for? Well, the unconscious drive, the unconscious voice, these are actually people. So they may be people that he finds extraneously throughout this cycle. However, at this nature of your development of awareness, you do not have to go to this depth of the analysis with the larger life cycles, because you're talking about really long swaths of time. 30 till the end of the rest of your life. 40, for the end of the rest of your life. 50 till the end of the rest of your life. There are layering. But these are encounters or renewals of what you're going to be attuned to or experiencing or being nourished by or encountering. Okay, these are the principles of what your energetic process is going to be interpreting. This is life. Life cycles are life. You're going to be taking that in. Because it's such a long cycle and there's so much variability in the larger life cycle, we only stick with some of the aspects and maybe highlight a few places here or there. Depends on how deep the client wants to go or how long they are with us in our practice. Okay, so renewals. Okay, renewals are the things that are repeat in the design. And you notice that it doesn't have to be exactly precise. Example, the 1.5, Ra had the 1.1. Okay, this just simplifies things. It simplifies it so that it's easier for you to do your work by removing the renewals, because what most people want to know about, what's new, what's different. They already got that gate. They don't really care about this other person with their own gate. I've got my own gate. Thank you very much. I've got my own anarchistic leadership, even though they might have that as part of the potential of the cycle. Again, long process. So these other aspects that are going to particularly connect up with aspects of you, as in planetary life aspects that are true. Now we have something that the genes want, because don't they want what is different? Oh, yummy. Give me some juice, honey. Give me that good stuff, that yummy stuff. And here we have the encounter in and out through the process of the developmental awareness. So Ra would use the term encounter for a new gate activation, part of the transit that we do not have He would not use renewal. He would use the term encounter. Encounter's a great word to use. You're going to encounter somebody. So here as an example, because this is a big aspect of what he is, right? A lot of his life aspects, part of his life work. We see that the green coming in, this 34 business that we mentioned earlier. Oh, is there going to be a bully? You may encounter a bully with the values trip that doesn't necessarily have anything to do with you. That person might be really in your face because they're kind of a bully. And you're going to see that. It might be a female. It might be a male with some real strong female tendencies. Nevertheless, the bully. This is the line quality. So you're going to encounter potentially someone with values trip that doesn't necessarily have anything to do with you. Now, this is especially true when you're talking about the solar principle of the annual life cycle, right? But what if the cycle is bringing in somebody? Oh, doesn't Venus show us what we love and romance? So what if he marries a bully? Or what he attunes to the being who is a bully and has some work to do with that person. Who knows? But this is speaking to the nature of the encounter. And it may not have anything to do with you. So remember to come back to whatever your authoritative principle happens to be. You explain that to them continually and repeatedly. So what do you say instead of follow your strategy and authority? For raw, you say your intuitive impact, your intuitive knowing, your pattern recognition that goes so deep, shockingly into the now as an awareness principle expressed through the voice, right? Something like that. So the values trip being something that doesn't necessarily have anything to do with you, your authority will tell you what is true, okay? And you all will have your own learnings and your own wisdom potentials. And I find it quite fascinating to process, although I haven't spent a lot of time with it personally, like researching and investigating. It's not my trip. I'm more experiential. I find it very interesting to see a lot of my clients coming in around my same age. That means the same age group, we're going through similar stages because our Chironian cycles are around the same time. So then we come in with a similar stage as far as what we are seeing developmentally or being around or being conditioned by, and so forth and so on. Quite interesting, truly. All right. So if we were to now take a look at planets again, the planets bring us the flavorings of the experience. They bring us, for the large life cycles, okay? The large life cycle is going to bring a different incarnation cross for the most part, or it's going to bring a personal expression, you could say, personal experience, a layering on of a new costume that you're wearing. Unless, of course, it's a solar cycle, and then it's just a renewal of your own energies. So you just kind of safely discard that. Your birthday, you just safely discard the solar principle, the earth grounding. You don't have to talk about it because they already are that. But in the large life cycle, we have this new evolutionary principle or process of discovery or experience or whatever it happens to be. Now, again, direction is the nodes of the moon, the personality and the path of the awareness principle and what the body is designed to resonate to or learn from and through. Now, inner planets, moon, Mercury, Mars, Venus. I said that in misorder, so I'll say it again. Moon, Mercury, Venus, Mars. These are people. Archetypally speaking, they are people. So think like Aries or Aphrodite or Hermes or what is a moon goddess? My daughter named our cat Celine, Luna, whatever you want to do archetypal. It's a little bit easier to describe this if you imagine a person. And isn't that what human beings tend to do anyway? We anthropomorphize, big word. We label planets like people. We give them stories, the gods, right? So the gods on Mount Olympus. This helps us to make sense of these principles, and they show up literally as people. So this person is playing Mercury for you. I know that my husband tends to show up as Mars or Mercury in my cycles, and he's engaged with me and I'm talking to him, and wow, this is really interesting. He's just there. So when you go to these weather themes, you have people, inner planets, development, outer planets. Now, sometimes it's quite rare, but it can be people too at a distance, So these other 3 sets of keynotes, first we started with the planets as a general reminder. Then we started with the channels as a construct of understanding. Now we're going back to planets again so that you have these generic qualities or capability of describing the element of what's going to connect, what's very possible given certain situations. These inner planets are going to have potentially a developmental impact where maybe the whole channel is there because of that person having aspects of those gates, or it might be this person and that person, and together you're learning about that. There are often occasions where outer planets can actually represent beings. But again, Ross says it's quite rare. Possible, but it's rare. These are the general themes. So again, remember, repetition, the mother of all learning. Try to explain this to somebody else as soon as possible, or say it out loud to yourself. Go apply it in your chart. This is what is going to help you learn this stuff. Direction for nodes, people, Moon through Mars, and development for the outer planets. So outer planets, if you recall from our PTL1, we called them more transpersonal. These are personal planets, the inner planets. These are more transpersonal, as in they're slower, they're bigger, they're longer as far as the time that they take. So as a developmental process, as an example, a whole generation of people are going through the same Plutonian principle as those who were born in that same era. Yeah, so it's a developmental, long, slow, big movement that may be personal. It may feel really personal. It depends on what is in your own design. Okay. So development can be personal, people can be developmental, and direction, this nodal, can be awareness, as well as people, as well as the path that you walk. There are all these general themes that you can work with, and it is an art to read a chart. So the core essence, the sun, in a cycle represents the major theme of the cycle itself and how it impacts you personally. So you look at the personality, conscious core essence for a being, that's their motivational frequency of their life purpose fulfillment. You add on a cycle, now you're looking at the theme of the cycle itself and how it's impacting you, as in what is true now in your 30s or 40s or 50s or 60s and beyond. In the daily theme, the gate activated by the sun will give us the theme of the day. We don't use this in a yearly cycle specifically because it's always going to be the same. However, it is the focus of the larger cycles, that sun. Grounding and balance for the earth, we normally say. This is going to bring balance because the sun-earth polarity, if we didn't have that earth, the light would keep moving and we wouldn't have grounding. We wouldn't have yin or form principle. So that sun being a programming agent or an energy, a yangness, the earth grounds, receives, captures, grows, nurtures, protects that programming into the world of form. This is form. Again, we don't use this in a yearly cycle because it's always going to be the same. However, it is the focus of larger cycles because it's part of the life's work. Again, remember, life's work as movement towards purpose during that time. So remember, when you're doing large life cycles, you're mostly looking at incarnation crosses as an aspect of this being moving through their developmental purpose fulfillment of whatever age and stage that they are in. Now, direction, past and future direction of the nodes, Ross says it's not so much direction in the sense of this is where you go, but this is going to be what it's going to look like as you're going along that way. That's why nodes are so important, because although they're not planets, the nodes of the moon are equally powerful and they play a key role in cycle analysis. So you are going to drop that incarnative cycle, larger life cycle, Saturn, Uranus, Chiron, or second Saturn if you do those, into the nodal view, the new seasons of the life, okay, the seasons of the life. South node represents developmental stage of experiencing life in our immaturity until we reach our Uranus opposition, again, remember, right here between 38 and 44 years of age. And the North Node gives us the mature stage of experiencing life, breathing out life experience, letting go of the process of what no longer serves us, retaining what does, because this is a polarity. This is the way in which nodes frame how either your personality thinks about the world and itself, as in its view perspective. It's who and what you see, how you see, your awareness of where you be. But on the design side, the nodes frame your relationship to the environment, what you're going to resonate to in the environmental construct of where you are. And that represents the stage where our life is played out. And how we see along that stage happens to be the perceptual viewpoint. Okay. The environmental frequency is the unconscious capability. So all you do is you add on to a new layering. Like, let's say, as an example, to make it quite easy, if we were in San Diego, sunny San Diego, and we could have our scene set in downtown Little Italy at the farmer's market. That is very different than being at SeaWorld, you know? So you've got your life experience, and we're in San Diego, but are we going to be at SeaWorld, or are we going to be walking our wolf dog at downtown Little Italy with all the people wanting to pet him and see him and see, you see? So that's the construct, the layering that you have to take into account. Now, people. The moment that you're looking at these inner planets and these people, you have this configuration of the quality of the person. Are they going to be wishy-washy? Are they going to be moody? That's moon. They'll be there temporarily and gone in a split second. They're going to show you many faces. Moon. Are they going to be mercurial? Are they going to want to talk your ear off? Are they going to be, communicating and thinking? Are they going to be values trip, beauty, romance, maybe some kind of jealousy? I don't have to be all positive. Venus can be somewhat green with envy, when you got the complexion thing going on. Oh, she turned green with envy. You're talking about Venus there. Yeah, wanting something that is not yours, valuing, let's say, wealth, and you don't have it. So these qualities, last one is Mars. Mars, again, strong like bull, bull in a china shop, maybe even, or just banging around and making mistakes with intimacy. This one, I want to impregnate now. This person coming into your view, and they really want to impregnate you. You got the 59-3 on the other side. Ooh, be careful. Don't make babies if it's not right for you, of course. But see, Mars, just playing with the process. It doesn't have to be so gross as an extreme example, but just helping you see that you can preface these things with you may experience, or have you noticed? Because if somebody comes to you in the middle of this process, you might say, have you noticed? And now floodgates of awarenesses open up and they go, oh my God, yeah, that's my husband's chart and blah, blah, blah. And we got married and we got pregnant and, you know, all that fun stuff. Kind of fun to be able to talk about this being embodied as a person, because yes, it is actually some body. These are bodies, planetary bodies traveling in space. That's why they call them planetary bodies. They're bodies, they're people in our transits. Okay, so the moon. Moon is always going to be a very strong presence. Why? Push-pull. This moon person can end up being a very deep driving force, driving you to learn something, pushing you to learn something. The drive that inherent is the moon, it gives us in the moon, it gives us gravity. Yeah, it gives us weightedness. Gravity, weightedness, why? Moon pulls the tides of our oceans and the tides of our bodies because we are mostly water. Now, Mercury, communication and thinking, is going to be the communication theme of the cycle. Now, when it's a person, if you have a Mercury that's personal because it's electromagnetic or compromised, you may end up having a lot of talking, communication with somebody who's new in your life and you're sharing all this information. Or maybe you're a bonds made and broken person. They went out, they came back in, and oh my God, we are really talking it up and we're catching up and we're having all kinds of interesting intellectual conversations. Depends on where it is, relatively speaking. So moon, this way in which it is reflected, the light that other people see inside of you, if it's your own, or you're going to be influenced by, if this is a person coming into the light, it's the inner nature that is shining through. Remember, where's the moon's light coming from? It's coming from the solar principle and it's reflected by the moon. So what's placed on display? What has that inherent beautiful inner glow? You know, it's important to see where the moon is pulling or pushing you to stand up, be on display. And this lunar cycle is definitely the starting place for our reflectors to understand what's consistent in their design on a monthly basis and the impact of its influence. We will have a whole class on that. Coming back to Mercury, this is the messenger of the gods. Mercury rules communication. It rules transportation. Cryptocurrency, I have seen people attribute to Mercury. Why? Because fast. It can go so fast compared to regular money or, heaven forbid, snail mail. You ever get checks in the mail anymore? Only when it's a return of something you bought and they have to send you your money back somehow when it's a third-party transaction. So Mercury represents the expansion of one's consciousness through all forms of communication. We're not just talking about writing, books. We're talking about social media. We're talking about music, song, dance, movement. I was watching myself teach recently, editing video, and I'm noticing that my hands are much more active, that they're talking. You know, I'm not doing it on purpose. It's just one of the things I'm like, where is that coming from? Where is that? Oh, well, Mercury, way more active in this principle as far as the feeling or the felt sense of what this being is experiencing. I've got Mercury and Mars there next to each other, connected up with the solar principle in an emotional channel. So these hands, they move, you know, gives us an insight into what we truly need to communicate relative to the Mercurian principle. Quicksilver, quickly, expressing and deliver out, reaching to the other, as in a message, whether it's life, whether we're doing it consciously, the body, this body talking, it's doing it unconsciously. Yes, it's, yeah, just moving along and, oh, stop, you know, I mean, just wonderful hands, they talk. To communicate specific activated themes throughout your life and in very specific cycles of life is part of the nature of what you came here for. When I was a child, I was put into hula dancing lessons at the age of 4. 4 was my first experience up on stage where an older couple, they gave me a chalet. I can still remember having that around in the story of this experience. The hands communicate, they move, this communication theme in a cycle. So when you're thinking about not only voice on the body side with Mercury, You can also think about bodily communication physically, because our bodies speak. They lean away, they ponder, they pray. They have all kinds of ways that we can communicate with others in order to facilitate the energy, the movement, the vibrational frequency coming across. Okay, Venus values provides the standard. This is the banner headline for the cycle, taking you on a values trip in a cycle. Is it right for you? This Venusian environment, is it true? Because it can be very different. Maybe these people around you, again, think about the values trip. Lavina values material success. 21-3, hey, being your own boss, you know? It may not have anything to do with you. You might be totally like, nope, not going there. Money is not my trip. And, you know, there is no measurement. There's no judgment. Relative to the cycle, though, bringing this into you, maybe it doesn't make any difference and it's not necessarily something that you would pay attention to. And you're just like, Lavina about her values trip and her money trip and her being her own boss trip. What is that all about? Nothing to do with you. That's okay too. You know, we all are our own authority. It establishes the mores, the morals, the natural, organic, relational, personal, individual between you and other laws for how we deal with each other and how the world around us is experienced. So you see a Venus, a Venusian principle, third line like me, bonds made and broken with money. Oh boy, money is a prana. It flows in and out of the life. It's spent just as quickly as it's made, particularly in the world where I live in. It's very expensive here. So how do we deal with this values principle of being able to learn about the value or worth of money and how we work with it? Okay, so money, that's me. But you, what if you have, you know, your individual querying of the mysteries or ponderings of life process. So you might love questions, and you might be somebody who is absolutely adoring conversational trips that are not boring. When it comes to love, when it comes to beauty, Venus shows us what we love. So for the cycle, it's going to bring a person that has this values trip. Is it right for you or not? If it's a long, larger life cycle, you're going to be conditioned to learn from that person. If it's people, personally, so connected up with something in your design particular. So what if, to flip the example relationship, you've got a 24 and that Venus comes in with its questions, and now it's part of the cycle, it's a person, and now, oh, you're loving the relational dynamic. Gosh, we have so many interesting, inspiring, engaged communications for you personally. Venus is your right, your own right, if you have it in your design where you see the right and wrong, the moral questions, the moral issues that you go through. Now, if you don't act with moral clarity, and if those around you don't act with moral clarity, Venus can be harsh in her retribution. Take that money away from you. Take that lover, take that friend, take that whatever it happens to be, that house, that book collection, whatever it is. Operate in integrity with the inherent value of you. The values that are there established in this Venusian principle become your own laws in Jupiter, and any retribution takes place through Saturn. So same thing that you can look at with the transit coming in, except now these may be people that create some kind of rule over you, that if you don't obey that law and that rule, Saturn comes in and punishes. Now, when it comes to being your own authority, can you handle, let's say, the shock of separation or the recriminations and the judgments? Yes, because you're operating in integrity and in alignment. So the standard of this relational dynamic, that values trip that you might be experiencing, is it right for you? Is it what is true? Mars energy, the maturing energy. Mars plays this huge role in our personal transformation. It is an incredible gift to have Mars, a strong Mars in one cycle. Everybody kind of like overlooks it. It's not maturing. Oh, this is a thing. Maybe it'll mature. I don't know. But what Mars does is it provides energy. It provides raw power. It provides change and mutation. This aspect for the cycle that is coming in, this may not necessarily be well coordinated because remember, it's not necessarily mature. So this person coming in with all this raw energy and they're really wanting to do some stuff, is it going to be educational, personal, or environmental? Regardless, they're going to have an abundance of maturing energy. Excuse me. So energetically immature processes or patterns or pulses that may not be able to get punished because don't teenagers kind of get away with a little bit more than mature adults? Yeah. The responsibility maturing over one's lifetime is one of the things that Mars has a hallmark of and for. So you add to that somebody who has 6 lines in their Mars, then you know it's going to be a longer developmental process. This energy might seem a bit passive until it gets rolling, and then it's a force to be reckoned with. Once it's ignited, Mars, that's capacity can build momentum over time. Now, that might show up as angry, mindless outbursts, where even basic inhibitions, let's say in the sexuality trip, can be overwhelmed. It depends on where you're finding this Mars. When you look at it in your own design, it brings extraordinary energy. It brings power. It brings force. Now, is that tempered with maturity? Depends on how old you are in this life. Yeah, it depends on your settled inness into the cellular matrix of the structure of the organic principle of being an instrument. Yeah, we are all instruments of consciousness and form. So refining it over time, what can it do is settle into this powerful and mature wisdom. You look at particularly 6s, very wise over time about the correct use of energy. On the body side, again, the heat, the formulation of energy principle, heat creates movement. It creates dynamism. Remember, cold contracts, it slows things down. This is the heat of the body. So in the cycle process, it brings rise to the temperature. It brings mutation. It brings an alchemical change, potentially. You add on 3 there, and then you know you've really got some change going on. Yeah, burning things through fever, maybe. Okay. Development will be our last process. What about aura communication? I see this question. It just happened about 10 minutes ago. What question do you want to ask, Alex?
Actually, this came up when you were talking about Mercury, about like not only the expression of the voice, but also like the body cues and so. So I was curious about like, what about the aura communication? Is it also Mercury, or it sounds more like it's Jupiter?
It is. You're right. You're absolutely right. The aura builds the body, though. So that whole construct there, Jupiter, Mars, and Mercury, they're in a column for a reason. It is part of the experience of the expression. Aura
The magic square.
builds.
Okay.
Yep. That's why the magic square is the way that it is. That's why I like to look at it when I'm analyzing, because I want to see the linkages. If it's in the plain body graph, I don't see that connective field in the same way as when I see it in the magic square.
Perfect
Yeah.
timing. Actually,
It
you
is, right?
yeah.
Yeah, very
You
perfect.
will be start speaking about Jupiter, so
My
I'll let you
favorite.
continue. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Jupiter. Oh, great good fortune and good luck come when you obey your own law. And remember too that whenever you see Jupiter in a channel, oftentimes people look at that and say, oh, how lucky. Sometimes they're jovial, sometimes great good fun, feasts, think larger, doing things big, Jupiter, when it comes to the cycle law or rule, it can bring some guidance in. Expansion is a keynote you can use with Jupiter because Jupiter is a failed star. It gives off its own neutrino stream, very small. But opportunity for more material matter, it brings us our rule, And if we obey our own law, we are protected. So it can bring a cycle rule temporarily for the 30s or 40s or 50s. But if we are not obeying our own developmental process, Saturn comes into discipline. And discipline is a good thing. We don't want completely unruly children. We want some structure, Saturn. We want some discipline. So I see it like rather than a cage, I see it like a corralling effect to protect Saturn. Jupiter, it is on the body side, creating the auric principle, the auric frequency. And on the conscious personality, it's bringing what you are here to teach or develop. See, in the transit, it's a development guidance process for this cyclical season of your life. Other than the sun, no other object exerts greater influence on us or over us, I should say, because this is a very large principle. It's moons, even. They represent a kind of electromagnetic central operating theater. It does relate to theater or plays. It holds the holder of the Akashic records. So the history, and if you were to talk about putting the wisdom keepers up there, this would be where they would live, because each of us are imprinted with a very focused, expansive theme of what is correct for us, our own individual law as written by Jupiter. You can see in somebody's Jupiters, as an example, Lavina has them both in individuality, in a defined throat center. So the teaching aspect and the expansion aspect of being able to teach something or live out these personal laws or rules is something that feels empowering inside. So is it going to be supportive for you? Maybe your Jupiters are in tribal. Is it going to be sharing for you? Maybe they're in logic or abstract. What is it for you, relatively speaking, to what you came here to do? And then when you lay out the law of the cycle rule, is it something that you can gain great good fortune by? Because Jupiter, again, now, just like how Venus can sometimes get a bit jealous, Jupiter can tend to overdo things. So there's always, great good fortune, but we may be overly generous or overly expansive and overgive to the detriment of something else. And so then Saturn comes in and just, hey, just a little bit more structure or rules or boundaries. Don't let them have too much fun. They're here to learn. They're here, I'm thinking of my teaching aspect as a teacher, bringing people to school. So your ability to benefit from the generosity comes from a deep obedience to your own law and protection. And again, your new cycles that you're going through, hey, you got layerings. Saturn, your 30s, Uranus, your 40s, Chiron, your 50s. Look at all those Jupiters, not to mention Jupiter going through its 12-year cycles and going through and connecting up with you, find the law that is true. Rather than getting all overwhelmed with, well, I got to think about this one and that one and the other one. I'm just laying out the program so that you can see one of the reasons why we stress strategy and authority so much, because this is not a mind thing that you can figure, oh, I got to do this, but what about this? And what about that? No, body is life, which creates the, physiological makeup, the auric principle, of course, your original body, and our own laws, our rules, our games that we play with this form principle. Inherently, the fundamental nature of truth, your individual nature of what's right for you or aligned for you. Strategy brings when to decide. Authority is action or not, relative to the engagement with any of these laws or rules. So you still all have your own authority. Now, wherever Jupiter is in the chart, it brings a potential boost, energetic boost to that area, reminding us that we may have been underestimating our capabilities. What if it taught you to play small, to hide the expansiveness or the jovial? No, everybody respects the seriousness. You got to be serious, Lavina. Be a serious teacher. Don't make jokes. Don't crack jokes, says the mind. However, the Jupiterian, jovial, good-natured, fortunate, good luck, when it's in its expansive mode. It invites us to explore this area for development. Development, Jupiter, law, generosity, this deep obedience to your own law and protection. It is the place, my mindset of peace, where we can see, maybe not visually, but inherently feel and know the intrinsic undercurrent of the nature of reality, that we have this effervescence or expansiveness, this connective field that reaches beyond the veils and beyond the walls that we seem to be separating us in this reality. So, Jupiter. Thank you, Jupiter. Father Zeus. Okay, Father Time now, different story, the structure. In the ancient, way back in the day, I really should look this up. I don't know how the years and stuff, but it would be nice to know. Saturn was actually of benefit. It was a great thing to have. And then Dark Ages brought the projection of humanity onto Saturn as pain and punishment, and the discipline, not in the positive sense, but constraint, limitation, restraint. Now, you can always see two sides to the same coin, as far as there's this and that. We have to have bones in order to have structure. There has to be some meat on the bones. I think Mars with the meat. But bones, calcification, aging, time, structure. I mean, there's two different things that happen here. We need strong bones in order to walk upright. And so Saturn, bones to the body, it's vehicular movement, we'd just be jello on the floor if no bones. So it brings tasks, not just a task master or mistress, however you want to identify Saturn, and ensures that we can stay on track. Hard work is another aspect of Saturn. So discipline to stay on track, helping us mature and grow from our life's experiences, the judge of where we are punished if we do not obey our own personal laws and values or rules. Saturn is where the pain point shows up, right? So what happens is anywhere in your chart where you have to deal with the consequences of your inactions or actions, Saturn shows it. So Saturn, relatively speaking, to where you have this very ancient yin force, okay? Yin force, even though it says he, yin force. I think this is the one where Ross said, Saturn's got to be a female because there's no way in hell a male would be that punishing. Something like that in one of his older lectures, where it represents the places where you pay for incorrectness of not following your own rules, laws, and morals. It's a hard realism. So a profound signpost over time as you mature and grow, where you can see progress in your process, because if you push those pain buttons of your own Saturns, or if somebody else does, you don't have the same kind of negativity or reaction to the nature of what is inside of you that is correctly limiting you or disciplining you or restraining you or constraining you to whatever it is that particular Saturn gave you the discipline to do in this life. So expectant taskmaster, no praise here. It's, oh, you did a good job, good for you. There's no coddling or pussyfooting. It is no praise when you're operating in alignment. It's just that Saturn leaves you alone. So this is a signpost that you're operating correctly, as in you've got some strength there, you've got some bones, you've got some metal. But if you're not living correctly, where you break your own rules, your own laws, Saturns punish you, as in calcification, aging, pain, bone, dis-ease, which turns to disease, all these challenges that may upset your moral fiber, because again, remember, it's linking back to not just Jupiter, but also your Venusian capability, what you find beauty in. So in this reality, the construct of Saturn can bring forth this light of new awareness, because remember, it's in the furthest reaches of the sky that we can see with the naked eye, Saturn. If you look through a telescope, the first planet I ever looked through a telescope at the top of Mauna Kea on the big island of Hawaii in like 8th grade. one of those field trips, going up there and seeing that perfect little cutout, bright, bright, bright white with its rings around it. Like, I'm seeing a planet now. It looks fake. It just looks like a little white image, you know, but it's there. It's literally there. And this is what I would encourage all of you to do, is get one of those apps. Let me turn on my phone and see if I can find the one for you that I prefer. Because what you can do is actually look to the light of these planets outside at night in the sky. If you live in a remote area like I do, you'll be able to clearly see Mars winking at you with its fiery eye and glow. You could see the bright light of Venus, you know, the night, the earthly, the most brilliant, beautiful evening star, they call it. Yes. It brings forth a new awareness when you literally see the planets all lined up within a particular area of the sky or overlapping. Look to where they are in the sky, find where they're at and find the gate, and just know that you're taking in that neutrino feed. Yeah, the filtering or the feed, of course. Let me see. It'll take me a second. I have so many different apps. Skyview is the app. Explore the universe, Skyview. Okay, so sorry, you can see the lights behind, but it shows objects up in space. And so you can even type in like your fixed star, and you can, it'll tell you which way to point to find it, where it is, or whatever. Type in any planetary object and it'll point you in the direction to find where it is. Is it above the horizon? Is it below the horizon? Which planet am I looking at right now? You know, and then go look in the mandala wheel for the just now and see what planetary activation it's lighting up for us in your design, Now, this development of the Saturnian principle, the judge, the discipline, these transits teach us to take responsibility for ourselves. So again, it shows the nature of the 30s being the end of childhood. Saturn, grow up now. That's what he brings, or she. We need to reach within and pull out or pull down from the depths of our own innate nature, our inner strength, to rely upon ourselves. Strength, I think Saturn. Saturn's placement does not flatten us. Indeed, instead, it slows us down, makes us live in the here and now, keeps us from taking unnecessary risks, helps us build and structure our lives in ways that will reap rewards down the road. So you have the discipline to work hard. You got some strong Saturns. Yeah, it shows the identification of any weak links in our lives. And it's these weak links or foundations that are tested under Saturnian transits. So as a byproduct of really heavy Saturn transits, depression or the need for deep rest may be one of the principles or the experiences, consequences, rather than not following your own rule or law. When it lets you alone, when you're not being punished, then you know you're on track. But when you have discipline, when you have strength, when you have restraint, think restraint, not as in being restrained, but having restraint not to, and then whatever that gate activation happens to be for you, either in your nature or in the current transit that you're in. What is that transit teaching you, showing you, disciplining you to do? Is it right for you? Only your authority knows what's true. Okay, 2 more planets. Oh, 3. Sorry, I'm moving quite slowly today. Oh, thank you. Alex imagined Trunchbull as Saturn from Matilda the movie. Yeah, Miss Trunchbull. Cosmic Watch is the app that I use. Oh, neat. I'll have to look that up. Uranus brings unusualness, wackiness, weirdness. I have gone into this: transition, revolution, instability, invention. It gives us wacky weirdness and sometimes chaos that we have to work through, or that makes us very unique in our expression of our humanness. So this evolutionary, mutative undercurrent of Uranus transforms us, our understanding. It's brought us a longer lifespan to the current 84 years healthfully. A 9-centered Homo sapien in transensis is here to be, to that age and stage for the full development of the tripartite life process: subjective youth, objective midlife, and transcendent older age has been imprinted upon us at this stage because of Uranus, because of the way in which it helps us develop. So a transiting Uranus tends to act as a disruptor, a change maker, a redoer for whatever it is that it touches. Uranus frees us from thinking inside the box. It gives us opportunities for reaching out and trying something completely and totally, utterly new. While Saturn slows things down, Uranus speeds up our lives, offering us chances to take some risks and maybe experiment with totally new ways of living or being, breathing, interacting with others and our environment in new, unique, novel, and innovative ways. Uranus is forward thinking. It does not have patience with maybe old-fashioned lifestyles or attitudes that are attached to the past or traditional. It wants what's new. It brings forth change. Transiting Uranus shakes things up, like shaking up the snow globe, throws everything up into the air, deck of cards, think magicians, where now, whoosh, and what are we going to reorganize like in order to create that mystical castle in the sky, or potentially to be more aware of our individuality? Uranus doesn't accept stagnation, nor does it accept restriction. It's not Saturn. Personal freedom here is highlighted. So Uranus helps us break free from the old and embrace the new. This transiting Uranus acts to awaken us and make us aware of our feelings of being restricted or constrained. Uranus is going to surprise us, jolt us, stimulate us. It's going to bring a very new reality to the fore. And what's hidden? This developmental process of Neptune? Well, misinformation, illusion, delusion, imagination, psychic phenomena, confusion, drugs. Now, psychic phenomena can work across all levels. I mean, all kinds of wacky, different, strange, esoteric realities, I'm air quoting, because the things that we can't see behind the veil of this normal, mundane reality, Neptune is what hides it. So Neptune's influence is generally behind that veil. Yeah, piercing through the veil is a common term that we have here from us personally. So it can inspire creativity and illusions and art and spirituality and the nature of, you know, poking your head through the sky in order to find that great teacher that demands total acceptance of the esoteric realms. These things that Neptune in any particular gate veils, it's going to veil your awareness of its potential, of its presence. This veiling can deeply disturb your shadow state nature or your not self being, because what happens is it's not possible to pierce beyond that veil there and see what's truly to be. So we lose this ability to see any limitations here, and that can lead to abuse. So substance abuse, again, drugs being something that potentially may be interesting to be able to surrender to the Neptune. Ra says to not try to pierce the veil of your own Neptunian principles, just leave them alone. When you surrender to Neptune and you allow the potential magic that is there to emerge from behind the great veil, the veil has been lifted from my eyes. You know, sometimes people say that, you know, I managed to be aware, but it's like a flash in the pan. It's a pan, it's a glimpse. It's not necessarily going to be something that is concretized in the nature of being or awareness. It's like waking up happens in a pulse, it's there and it's gone. You learn a great deal about the nature of surrender from whatever you have Neptune, as in surrender to your own process of whatever it is that's true. Just let it be. Now, in developmental transiting Neptunian principle, we have, think great oceans. Yeah. If we were to imagine gliding over the vast expanse of the Pacific Ocean when it's flat and there are calm seas, and we look down, we cannot see the bottom. Miles and miles deep they go, these trenches where nobody knows, to the basis point through which the molten earth, the magma erupts, and there are all these strange and wild wilderness creatures. I mean, things that people have never seen before. Okay, so we have confusion and dissolving as a principle of whichever aspect touches Neptune in the transiting chart. So here's an example. My husband's Earth is in 36. He just went through a phenomenal crisis physically of an experience, his body, okay, because the Neptune was there transiting him. So where we may feel like things are up in the air or confused in the initial stages of the transit, what's going on with my body? You know, boundaries not being clear, commitments being elusive, perception of one's reality is confused. And it is what it is. As the transit progresses, because remember, this takes a long time, it may go back and forth. And certainly by the time it is over, let me just check my chart here. Remember, oh, it's not on here. I have it at the end, it says Saturn. I can't remember how long Neptune stays in a gate, if you guys remember. Long time. A line? Really long time. Within 5 degrees of that activation of whatever it is that Neptune is transiting in you, potentially we have a more refined understanding of what's happening, because that thing that began as confusing can eventually actually augment our perception and our understanding. Remember the perceptual principle. Thank you, Alex. 2.5 years in a gate. The perceptual principle where it is dissolving something and then bringing some other kind of awareness to the fore. Sometimes we can experience a burnout of sorts that eventually leads us to take a different path. Often it's going to be a more spiritually rewarding or a fulfilling one. Why? Because Neptune acts to dissolve what it touches. So while Pluto brings a death and a rebirth and a transformation, Neptune erodes things as far as dissolving things. And here's our Pluto. Oh, I love Pluto. Thank you, Pluto, for the gift of knowing and awareness. Thank you, Pluto, for the attunement to the inner realms, because Pluto brings death. Thank you, death, for bringing us to this transformative. The largest, the biggest, deepest transformation one can have as a human being is the death, because it does bring to rebirth. So deep transformation and truth, Pluto. It brings the forces of the subconscious to the conscious, this truth transformation, regenerative or regeneration. Sometimes it's a compulsion. It can bring renewal as well, the unconscious, to bring it conscious, because it's a truth inherent and individual. Pluto influences the psychological makeup, and it's a core aspect of the psyche. So the conscious personality, its truth, and the unconscious body, its inhalation of life's principles, awarenesses, whatever it happens to be for you. So your cycle, Pluto, represents the truth that is there that you must look at in that time. Must is a strong word. However, this is your cycle after all. Your growing up phase, Saturn, that disciplining place and space of your life? Or is it your Chironian principle, where this is the truth of your maturity? And what about the Uranian principle, that, isn't it tilted on its axis, rolling around on its sides, very strange during that time? So what truth comes from the experience of coming into breathing in life and then exhaling out the life process? That's the Uranian principle. Uranus, yeah, the cyclical. So during that time, you have a Pluto there. And what is that Pluto teaching you? By bringing to the light of conscious awareness the subconscious forces, it represents a rebirth. So Pluto brings truth. It is the truth teller. It is the thing that is hidden underneath the substructure. I shouldn't say that, underneath the surface, where it brings into the square truth through the naked eye what this transformative effect could be or do before you die, because that's what Pluto is Pluto.